Welcome to ECTV Live. I'm Rusty Fender. Dave DeCosmo is vacationing at the South New Jersey shore. We wish him well, and good weather. Should be back with us next week. Recurring guest on this program and my longtime friend and colleague from PennDOT District 4, based in the Keystone Industrial Park in Dunmore, Assistant Executive Director of Highway Maintenance, my friend Dennis Giordano. Dennis, good to see you, my friend.
Likewise, Rusty. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's great to see you as always, and to talk about a very big topic, which is on the lips, for whatever reason, of every motorist in the area. And as you well know, I was the biggest fan and proponent of PennDOT operations before I was employed by them, as you well know. So it's not because I have to say good things about them, but I've said good things about them when I wasn't an employee of PennDOT.
Well, we appreciate your support.
Absolutely. And a lot of big things happening in this area, and it's a very, we have to go back, first of all, Dennis, and we have to say that it's truly amazing that a lot of folks don't realize the infrastructure, the transportation system in this area. You know, you laugh about a one-stop sign town, a one-stop sign area.
Right.
There are states like North Dakota and Wyoming and Montana that have one interstate running through them. We have 5 within a stone's throw if you include 476, the Pennsylvania Turnpike, plus 80 and 84
Correct.
and 380 and 81. Truly, this is the hub and the epicenter of warehousing, which we discussed off the air, and transportation, and the gateway to New England. You have to be thrilled, Dennis, to have a person like yourself in charge of such a massive infrastructure in no less than 6 counties in this area.
It's a challenge at times, Rusty, as you well know. District 4, which comprises Lackawanna, Luzerne, Pike, Susquehanna, and Wyoming, has more linear miles of interstate than any other district in the Commonwealth. Now, you know, your customers and your viewers would think Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Harrisburg. Not so. We have more interstate than any of those other districts. And that takes a big toll on some of our work plan.
You think of a company, you think of a corporation, albeit Fortune 50 to Fortune 500. They have a presence in this area, from Isuzu in the Center Point development, to Chewy now down in Hanover Township, to Amazon, which has 3 different locations, including Gouldsboro. This is certainly the shipping capital of the world in this area, at least the United States, Dennis.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We do have a lot of industry, and it's growing. It seems like it grows almost daily, Rusty. You can't take a ride down Interstate 81 and not notice a huge new building that's going to be built here or there. And we unfortunately see the negative side of all this when we try to hire equipment operators, because quite frankly, they're going to all the big businesses, and it's a little difficult for us to compete. But it is great. It brings a lot of jobs to the area, and we're certainly trying to provide the infrastructure and the improvements needed to continue the growth as we move forward into the 21st century.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because along with the big city industry and the big city business comes the big city problems. You know, when I worked in New York City and lived in New Jersey for 20 years at the beginning of my career in aerospace engineering, I used to drive the roadways, of course, in New Jersey, where I lived in Upper Montclair and in Little Falls and Basking Ridge and Scotch Plains. And you'd come up to an intersection in New Jersey with all the traffic, and you'd see the ruts in the pavement.
Right.
And we've never had those around here. We've never had the infrastructure damage or wear and tear that the big cities, that the Philadelphias and the New Yorks and the Houstons and the Chicagos have. And now we see this is like the same way. But you know, with everything bad comes something good. That also means there's a lot more folks, working, and a lot more industry in the area, but a lot more maintenance to do too, Dennis. In this
Absolutely. Right now, Rusty, we have just this year planned alone, and I'm not going to talk about interstates. I'll just talk about back roads, your 2-lane roads. We have over 650 miles of improvements planned this year in our 6-county area. We diversified our treatments a little bit this year, and we're really starting to put a large emphasis on 4-digit SRs, and we're using new products. One of them that I'm very excited about is the use of recycled asphalt pavement. It's also known as cold-in-place recycling. That's when we mill a road, we save the millings in lieu of giving them back to the contractor, and we basically add emulsion oil to it and water and put it back down on a 4-digit SR. Now granted, this process is not good for every road, but for a lot of the back roads where there's a minimal truck traffic and a low ADT, it's really the name of the game for a low-cost, high effect treatment.
And it's a step above tar and chip.
Absolutely.
Big time.
Absolutely.
I've seen the industrial equipment on the back of a flatbed, which combines and emulsifies the emulsion that injects the tar into the millings and all that, and fine powder. And it goes back, and it has a long life, certainly not like a real base coat and new asphalt, but it saves a lot of money. And then again, in the interim, you can build up a little bit in your coffers to do this road correctly, maybe in 10 years when it needs maintenance again.
Exactly. It's not a one-size-fits-all, but it certainly is a tool. Now, we do have to use an oil chip over the top of it just to seal it. Some of the other things we're trying to experiment a little bit with is we're really increasing our chipping. We have 300 and some miles we're doing department force, and another 200 we're doing by contract. One of the other things we're experimenting with is what they call a high wrap asphalt. So in other words, when we buy asphalt for things such as base repair and even paving, it would have a much higher wrap content. And it should be, the whole idea here is that we'd be able to buy the blacktop much cheaper and certainly expand our reach as it relates to improvements on the roads.
You talk about big projects and big money. Look at that massive paving project now. It's in the second month in Pike County on that 2-lane road. One end to an end, road widening, including shoulders. You don't think about that when people see a pothole on 81 that opens up. That's the talk of the day, but they don't see that this 30 or 40 or 50 mile stretch of 2-lane road encompasses several work crews out of several counties for several months.
Right. And quite frankly, Interstate 84 from the Lackawanna County line to New York State, which is approximately 36 miles one way, will be completely reconstructed within the next 5 to 7 years.
That's amazing.
It's a lot of federal funds that's put into that, and there's a lot of money in that interstate. And unfortunately, that's what the problem is with some of the other interstates around here. Interstate 81 and 380, they have not had the benefit of such an exorbitant resurfacing and rebuilding. What we all do, Rusty, every couple of years we do what we call a 2-inch mill and fill, which is almost a Band-Aid for a road. The interstates were built in the Eisenhower area, and that's in the 60s. And quite frankly, they're in need of rebuilding now, but the funding just isn't available at this point in time.
The funny part too is that I know when 84 fully opened, and this was, I mean, fully opened, and probably around 1972, 73, 74, with the building of the Elmhurst bridges. As you know, that was the last step to connect 380, 84, and 81 near Tyke Street and Dunmore. And people laughed back then, and again, you're talking 50 years ago, people laughed saying, 84, there's like 3 cars on it. Look at it now.
Right.
So much they required a 4-stage rebuilding process from the New York State border, which you mentioned, all the way back to the Lackawanna County line. Look at it now. And the same thing will be said about the South Valley Parkway down in Hanover Township near LCC. How many people are going to use this? Give it 10 years.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. Interstate 84, as you mentioned, you mentioned the term earlier, gateway to New England. That is the gateway to New England.
It is.
The truck traffic is probably almost 20% on Interstate 84. That means 2 out of every vehicles is a heavy truck heading north or heading to the New England area. And that does a toll on the bridges and the road themselves.
And look at not only that, but look at the tractor trailer traffic that'll save money by using a bridge like the Newburgh Beacon or the Tappan Zee for $10, where it's $15.50 an axle on the George Washington Bridge to take 95 for the same route that the 84 will eventually dump you out on Interstate 90, the Mass Pike.
Right. That's correct. We've been able to, obviously Pennsylvania has been pretty frugal as it relates to charging road taxes and stuff, and we try to remain competitive with our neighbors. But I don't think a lot of people don't realize this. I know you do because we've talked about it, but the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has more roads and bridges, aka infrastructure, than all the New England states, New York, and New Jersey put together.
Absolutely.
And you can't imagine that, but it's really, really true.
And the state of California. And California found the East Coast, which stretched from Key West, Florida to Maryland.
Right. So we have a lot of things going on in the Commonwealth. So there's roads everywhere. I mean, even if you're driving, you want to get from point A to point B, I don't think there's a person in the Commonwealth that doesn't know a shortcut or two. And
Absolutely.
that's because of the large infrastructure that we have.
Let's look at last winter. Did you save any money last winter? It seemed it was the winter from Hades. It's one of those winters where, again, and we all know this, Dennis, with this 30-year cycle, and I do believe in global warming is real, but this 30-year cycle, it doesn't snow anymore till February, but you're still getting snow on Memorial Day. It was the winter that never ended.
Yeah, it's, well, as you know, winter is our #1 priority. That's what we fund for, that's what we staff for. It's just that through the versatility of our staff, we're able to do a lot more things in the summer, but quite frankly, winter is the reason why we're here. If it probably stopped snowing in Pennsylvania, I'm not sure PennDOT would even be around anymore. But that being said, did we save any money? The simple answer is absolutely not.
Is that a fact?
Yeah, I did some numbers. I checked the numbers before I came because I thought this might come up. We spent last year approximately 28 to 29 million on winter. It's not our heaviest winter, but it is one of the heavier ones. I think we're starting to see the effects of global warming as it relates to winter activities. Now, let me explain. You know, back in the day when I was younger and when you were younger, it snowed. And when it snowed, it snowed, it snowed, and that was it. You plowed it off and it snowed the next time. For the majority of the storms that we had this year, it was a mixed bag.
Absolutely.
It either started off as rain or ice and ended in snow, or started off as snow and ended in rain or ice.
Because everything's right around 32.5 degrees.
Exactly, which presents a challenge for us. We need to keep, that requires more material to keep the roads safer. Back in the day when it would be a traditional snowstorm, we would plow the road, add material, spread material, it would melt, and eventually it would dry. Now we're spreading roads 3 and 4 and 5 times, where we would only maybe do them twice or three times in the past. That, coupled with the fact that the majority of the storms this year were weekends. Those are very costly for us because of our labor contract.
Right.
So, and don't get me wrong, every dollar that our people make, they are well worth every cent. Every cent. But it is a little bit more expensive to have storms on the weekend versus during the week.
Oh, you're right. It's exponentially. It goes up exponentially what you have to pay.
Correct.
And these folks are, AFSCME and it's union, and it's, there's a certain amount of call out. It's not like working for a lot of local companies. And again, I'm not knocking local companies, but if you work at a local restaurant or a local whatever, and no customers come in for 15 minutes, they send you home.
Right.
It's the way it works. You can't do that in an organization like the Department of Transportation, or you can't do that at Exxon, or you can't do that at AT&T. When you're there for a shift, you're there for a shift, whether you work for 5 minutes or whether you're on overtime for 4 hours. So it's entirely different. It's a big cost.
It is. It really is. What we do in the wintertime to try to manage costs and also try to be have a higher level of situational awareness and proactivity as it relates to storms, we go on the dual shifts. Now, we try not to go on there till at least in the farthest into the winter as we can.
Yeah, like the last week of October usually.
And then we try, even later if we can, and try to come off as soon as we can. But this year, unfortunately, the way it played out, we were on early, like early November, and we didn't come off almost till April. And that's just the way it was, you know what I mean? We also try to plan where we tell our people, look, we know this is coming, so make sure you're available and make sure you understand that you're going to be working for 12 hours during this. And like I said, our people are very, very good about that, and they're very professional, and they do a great job at snow removal.
Now, you've had it easy, I think now. The heat's off you because folks got used to the roundabouts. The heat's off you because now you do a lot of big projects at night. Those are the things that people will complain and yell and see you on the street. Do this work at night. How about these? So the heat's off you for those two. What's the latest problem that seems to be the most annoying daily problem?
Well, how much time do you have on this show, Rusty? I guess that's the question.
This is only 30 minutes, Dennis.
Okay, all right.
Give us the Reader's Digest.
I'll give you the Reader's Digest version.
Absolutely.
We did have a major issue this year with potholes. Knowing that the infrastructure is what it is, and knowing the funding being what it is.
Bad infrastructure and a freeze-thaw cycle every day of this winter.
Correct. That was what really, really created such a problem. What happens, I don't have to explain this to you, but what happens when you have 55-degree weather during the day and 2 to 3 inches of rain, and within 18 hours it is 0 or below, it's just catastrophic to the structures, whether they be concrete or whether they be asphalt. And then what I think some of our customers and maybe your viewers don't realize is that when we patch potholes in the winter, we have to do them twice. Okay? We have to go out and we basically put coal patch in there, which is twice the amount of regular asphalt.
And really temporary.
And it's only temporary till the next rainstorm. But then come spring, we have to go out and we like to mill them out, put tack oil in them, clean them properly, put hot asphalt in, and then of course compact to proper compacting specifications so that that it lasts. But our customers were a little upset with us this year over potholes. For the most part, the majority of them are done. We did a lot of base repair this year, but I just want to say for the record, I think that's one of the biggest challenges we have, is that everything's getting older and the potholes were just outrageous this year.
They actually were. It's the first time ever, and luckily it wasn't on a PennDOT road, but I had the first time I ever had 2. You couldn't write this. I just had 4 new tires put on less than 20 hours earlier, and in front of the Dorothy Dixon Dart Center, Wilkes-Barre, which is a city street in Wilkes-Barre, had 2 tires blown out from this pothole in the rain on one side.
I believe it.
I've never had a blowout in my life to get 2 on the same side. That's the severity of the pothole that you could not see filled with water in the rain. The worst time to look at potholes.
Yeah.
But I mean, you folks, you, George Roberts, who runs things in Dunmore, everybody else, all the support team, engineering, maintenance, of course, District 4, do a spectacular job with a lot of area to cover, as you mentioned. It really is. We've been on,
the whole organization as a whole has, we're constantly striving for more efficiency. You have to in this day and age to stay in business. Now granted, we're not a for-profit organization, but yet we have a lot of people to answer to. And that number one would be our customers. So we're constantly trying to do things more efficient. From the construction end to the design end, even to the maintenance end, we're constantly trying the new products, the wrap, which will be able to take the material that we normally gave away or wound up in somebody's driveway, and we're going to be able to use it twice. And from a green standpoint, that is an environmental win-win situation. So we're trying to do that. We're trying to become more and more efficient with our salt usage. We try to adjust the trucks so that the salt is only being placed on the road where it can do its job. What we do, and maybe some of our customers don't realize, is that we pre-wet all of our salt now. For the simple reason
so
being,
it doesn't bounce off the pavement.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
Exactly. And we do that using salt brine, which we make for less than 7 cents a gallon. So we keep trying to be more efficient, knowing that the dollars isn't going to escalate in the near future.
Oh, there is so. I mean, I've been an engineer all my life, not particularly a civil engineer, but I've been an engineer. When you're an engineer, you kind of know a little bit about geological and chemical and aerospace and electrical. But what I have learned in PennDOT in just over 2 years is amazing. That the average folks, well, don't care about or don't see, but it is truly amazing that, again, all the embracing of the new technology, like the reuse of the millings. I'm going to put you on the spot with this. I have heard this again and again. Is there any rumor, have you heard the rumors, that PennDOT will eventually take over the Pennsylvania Turnpike? That comes more and more to fruition every year when they even start quoting mileage and money. And do you think that will ever happen?
I can't honestly say. I can say this to you: the Pennsylvania Turnpike is its own entity. It's run totally different than PennDOT.
I know, and that's what they confuse with. I said that's not. It's the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission runs it. It's got nothing to do with PennDOT.
It's a totally different entity. It's run very well by Mark Compton.
Yes,
in there.
It is.
He runs it very, very well. They do a lot of capital improvement projects. What I would say, Rusty, is I've heard a lot of rumors about the potential of increasing the traffic on the Northeast Extension, primarily from Wyoming Valley to Clark Summit, to act as a bypass for the city of Scranton.
How about that?
I don't have to tell you what going down 81 on a Friday evening is like. It's literally bumper to bumper, not because there's any incidents, but it's just the the way it is.
That's a perfect storm, too, because they put, about 15 years ago, they put the new exchange in on Kaiser Avenue, mainly to accommodate the garbage trucks, the out-of-state trash trucks.
Correct.
So you have a built-in clover relief there. They just redid the Freedom Bridge in Clark Summit. That's perfect, and complete with the suicide fencing and all of that. Is totally state-of-the-art. That'd be a really good deal to go from the DuPont interchange to the end of the main line at Clark Summit. I'll bet you that will happen.
That could happen. Something that's where you have advance warning, where you would see a sign that says, "Look, if you're heading north, you can take the Interstate Turnpike or Pennsylvania Turnpike. It will save you 20 minutes. It's going to cost you whatever, So that's about it.
We'll see. We talked before we went on the air about the gas projects, Susquehanna. Primarily Susquehanna, we don't do in District 4, Bradford and Tioga or Sullivan. We do Wyoming and Susquehanna. And a lot of the use of the infrastructure, the breakdown of the infrastructure, and a lot of the help that you've had from companies like Cabot and Chesapeake and Southwest and all that. So when that came on, 2007, we're talking 11 years ago, when the gas boom, when no one knew what fracking was until 2007, till that terminology came about. Did you see that as a good thing coming, Dennis, or a bad thing as far as the infrastructure goes?
Rusty, we weren't sure.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I wasn't either.
We weren't sure. We weren't sure what was going to happen. Pardon me. But what I will say is throughout the whole process, the gas industry has been our partner throughout the whole thing. We don't always agree. I'll tell you that now. But we don't always disagree. And we meet regularly. We meet twice a month, and we talk about issues. We do what we call joint ventures. What I mean by that, if there's a stretch of road or if there's a piece of bridge that needs to be updated, they may put 50% in or 40%, and we would put the other 60%.
Saves a lot.
Absolutely, and lets us do improvements like you mentioned earlier on. I don't even know if we were on the air at the time, but on roadways that we probably wouldn't be able to get to just because of their traffic volume.
4-digit SRs.
Everything with PennDOT is priority.
It
goes by ADT.
It does.
Our interstates get the highest amount of priority, followed by the national highway system, and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, our 4-digit SRs suffer. But as a result of what we talked about earlier, we're trying these new low-cost treatments, and we're really putting a push on improving them as well. But as it relates to the gas company, they've been our partners. They work with us. Overall, it's been a good thing. Yeah,
and I spoke up for them too. I do a radio show for the last 5 years, and my co-host is one of the VPs of media relations for Cabot.
Okay.
And of course, I'm paid as an engineer on the show to put a positive spin on the gas industry, and there's a lot of positive details without spinning anything to be put on there. Do they do a lot of damage in some areas? Well, they'll even say that they do, and they try and restore. I mean, we went back after putting a pipeline through a field, and even went back and had a botanist and an arborist come in, and we replanted the same weeds that were there. Now, when do you replant same weeds? But it's restored in the gas industry, whether you go across a farmer's field or across a mountain, it's restored to the way it was or better.
Right.
But where do you go and get a lab sample to test the weeds to replant it? That's above and beyond the call of duty. And a lot of folks say, you know what, all these water trucks 24 hours a day, they destroyed the roads. They should repair them. And they do. But I see that, I think it's, as long as it's a joint venture like that, I think it's a good thing for both sides and saves both sides a lot of money on that deal, Dennis.
Absolutely. Again, I don't get paid by the gas company, so I basically tell you what I think. And honestly, they've been a good partner to us. And quite frankly, Rusty, the time that we struggled the most with the water trucks, and we certainly understand that that's an integral part of the fracking process, but the time we struggled the most is either in the spring when things are soft. There's a lot of water in the ground. It's usually a melting situation. The roads in Susquehanna County were never built initially to withstand that type of truck weight and that sensitivity and the amount of trucks. It's not their fault, you know what I mean? It is what it is. But I think we have a very good working relationship with them. We try to make repairs to the road and build them so they do last. And for the most part, I think the newer stuff is lasting.
I think PennDOT is the recipient of this being a bad thing, and it happens, I think, more on a secondary roadway, a local street, which is not a PennDOT street. But this road, which hasn't been paved since you and I were kids, just gets paved, and 3 days later, Pennsylvania American Water comes and decides to improve the water service to each house, requiring a utility cut for 5 blocks, and the pavement isn't even set yet. Isn't that frustrating?
Yes, it's very frustrating. Some of the most, and again, please don't take this as a shot towards the utility companies, because we have the same working relationship with them as partners as we do with the gas company. But unfortunately, by the nature of their business, their utility cuts are probably some of the most violent potholes, simply because they're absolutely vertical when you hit them. And you being the engineer, you understand that
there's an instant blowout when you have a rectangular square as opposed to a wear pothole instead of one that's a cut, and you can tell that that'll settle down after the next rain. You're right. What
I will say is this, though, in defense of the utilities, is that we have a meeting we had our pothole blitz this year.
Yes, indeed.
It's a very publicized thing where everybody goes on pothole.
Everyone out at the same time. That's right.
We brought even the utilities in, and we asked them to cooperate with us, and they put a couple of extra crews on as well to try to take care of some of the most violent, post utility cut type of things. So they work with us to a certain extent, and they do their best. So when somebody calls and they have an emergency utility cut in the middle of the winter, you can't tell somebody you can't have.
No, I know, because the road was just paved. Yeah,
you can't have water because the road was paved.
I understand that.
What we also do, and one last thing I'll share you with, if there is a whole series of utility cuts in an area that's just paved, we now ask them to pave that lane when we're done, as opposed to having a series of
square cuts. So, what's for the future, Dennis? Any big projects on the table coming up for next year? We're almost done. We're almost into the winter season for this year. So how about next year, Dennis?
Actually, there is the 2 bridges that you talked about earlier, the Elmhurst bridges.
Absolutely.
They call them the twin bridges over the Roaring Brook. They will be redone in the next year. That's a large project in excess of $22 million.
And the entire chemistry of the bridge, now even the design has changed, so they have to be replaced. When they put those in the early 1970s, the entire chemical and geological structure, the foundation for the supports and all that, they're all changed. They no longer use the anvil, the inverted hammerhead design and all that. So you have to take that right down to the base.
Yep, pretty much. So they're doing that. That's a big project. Something that I think will become great news for if they don't know already, our customers. We will be repaving Interstate 81 from the concrete at 185 mile marker all the way through Luzerne County to New Angola and back. And we're using something that we've never used before as it relates to asphalt. It's called stone matrix asphalt. And I know we're running short on time, but this is supposed to last 10 years. It has a higher asphalt content, and the stone is actually crushed into triangular pieces so that it fits together in the mix.
Interlocking, that's really interesting.
Interlocking
First
in
I'm
the
hearing
mix.
about this.
Yeah, and you don't get the voids inside of the asphalt. So that's something that some of the other districts have been using. They use it on runways. I know that for the airport. So we're trying to blend new technology because, again, our people do not like to be delayed in Scranton Wilkes-Barre.
Or anywhere else. And I really thank you for coming on. As always, Dennis, it's great to see you.
It was a pleasure.
Great to talk to you. Always. District 4, of course, the counties of Wayne, Pike, Susquehanna, Wyoming, Luzerne, and Lackawanna. Luzerne, of course, being the 3rd largest county, too, in the state of 67 counties, we have to say. So that's an entity in itself, just Luzerne County, number 3 in the state.
Yeah, it is.
Dennis Giordano, Assistant Executive Director of PennDOT District 4, based in the Keystone Industrial Park, Dunmore. We thank him, and we thank you for watching. We thank him for being with us. David DeCosmo back next week. I'm Rusty Fender. Thank you so much from all of us here. Mark McGlory, our technical guru, thank you. We'll see you next week right here on ECTV Live.